Hey everyone, I got a question today from a gentleman or gentlewoman named Black Aces, and their question was, how do they make an intro? If you've seen some of my previous videos, which I would recommend before watching this one's going to get a little complicated, so if you don't know, a lot of the basics, then I would highly recommend watching the other ones before moving on to this one. But he wants to know how to make, or he or she wants to know how to make a intro to your game. The example they used is one like in the Pokemon games, if you're familiar with those, where you pick your gender, enter your name, things like that. In this particular example, there's not an option to enter your name, but it's very simple. There's one event command that lets you enter your name, which will change it for your actor, so it's very easy. So what we'll do is go ahead and watch this intro that I created here for this video, and once we've watched it, then we'll go through and I'll explain the process of creating it. This is probably going to be a sort of lengthy video because there's quite a bit to touch on here. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and just play test this and take a look. Script, you will be able to control the timing yourself. If you know what that line was from, you win a So this is kind of similar to the Pokemon games, asking if you're male or female. Depending on your answer, you'll see the little chess piece change. Now you're able to select a profession based on your gender. I guess we're sexist now, but you can only select certain types of classes based on your gender in this particular example. So we'll go with wizard. Once again, the icon changes. You grow up and become a wizard. Music fades out. That's all she wrote. That took like 2.5 hours to make. But here in a second you're going to see why. So, if you thought that was pretty cool and you're still with us and that's something you would like to learn how to do, then keep watching. I'll show you how. Depending on your, like I said, your gender, your professions that are available will change. Just for this, I mean, you can do that however you want. I just made it like this so that we could look at a couple different options. This is going to get very in-depth with switches, because switches are amazing and let you do a lot of things, but it can kind of be confusing. So like I said, I definitely recommend watching some other videos or learning about switches yourself. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll take a look at how we did this. The first thing that I want to note here is that our starting position is at the very bottom of this map, and the reason for that is basically when you're doing a cutscene and your character is not involved in it, what you're going to use your starting position for, or your character for, is the camera, basically. So when we start this game, the camera is going to be at the very bottom of the screen because that's where our starting position is. Even though our character is invisible, the camera is still going to be there. The purpose for that is at the very beginning I want it to scroll up slowly, and to do that you have to have somewhere to scroll up, so I started it at the very bottom. There's only two things on the screen that we're going to look at. These 4 events in the beds here, they do absolutely nothing. They're just there to be part of the cutscene, so you can ignore that completely. This event up here at the very top right is just a very small event that starts at the beginning. It's what turns the screen black after you start the game. and it's also what makes your player invisible. So we changed the screen color tone here to nothing in 0 frames, so it's instant. And then we set a move route on the player to change our transparency, and it made us completely invisible. And once it's done that, Control Self Switch A is on, it moves over to page 2, and there's nothing there. It's just to stop the event so it doesn't loop and lag the game. Be sure when you do something like this that you're on parallel process so that it begins as soon as you arrive on this map. And it should just make everything go black, get rid of your character, so it's just perfect for an intro basically. It just gives you a completely black screen, and even when you zoom or when you fade in and you can see colors again, you will not be able to see your character until you change your transparency back. So that's that. That's very simple. That's what starts the game. And now here is our main event that's controlling our cutscene. Now you'll notice at the very top here I have a wait for 40 frames. The reason for that is so this event can do its thing. It can change the color tone, change the transparency, and even though it doesn't take 40 frames to do that because I told it to do it in 0 frames, I just add a wait for 40 frames just to make sure everything's working. From now on, anytime you see a wait command, it's unless specified otherwise, it's just for effect. It's to keep the text kind of flowing but not just instantly one right after the other. I think that adds depth and makes it not look so bad. And another thing to keep in mind is that this is not a refined intro. There are a lot of things that you would probably want to change and make better so that it's not so choppy, but it definitely serves the purpose of letting you see exactly what's going on here. So we've gone over everything, so now I'm just going to kind of walk you through this very first event. We have a wait for 40 frames while everything turns black and we get rid of the character and everything. We start a BGM, which is this one. Creepy. It's the one, when the screen's black, it just starts playing that, sets the mood. We wait 80 frames, change our text options to display at the top, and it says hide there because it's hiding the text box, the actual window that's around it, so it's just for effect. Play sound effect, thunderclap, and then we start scrolling up. Now check this command out. Scroll map direction up for a distance of 10 squares on the second slowest speed. And as it's scrolling up, we are also changing the color tone to this sort of faded gray over 120 frames. So basically the effect we get here is a very slow scroll as we fade in to this kind of gray, bleak atmosphere. With these frames, the 120 frames, that's a pretty lengthy bit of time. So we just kind of have this slow scroll with this slow fade, and it really just helps to set the mood. We're going to display some text, wait for effect. And if you know where this line is from, this please help us, O sinful children of Ivalice, you're my new best friend. We're going to wait 20 more frames, a little bit more text for effect, wait 20 more frames, and then we're going to have a screen flash. It flashes white and fades out over 80 frames, so it's kind of a, pretty big flash and kind of takes a second to fade out, and as the screen is flashing you also hear another thunderclap and the song in the background fades out over 1 second. Now this right here is a show picture command, and that if you go to your material base there's a section called pictures, and you can upload files to that so that you can display them in your game. Basically it's like a splash screen. For example, in a Pokemon example, it would be where it flashes and it says Pokemon Blue version, or whatever. In this one, of course, you have my little placeholder, the red text on the black background. So there's a lot of different options here you can edit. Just whatever you want to do. There are certain dimensions that you have to use for your pictures to display properly. So I would highly recommend maybe going into Paint and taking a screenshot of a normal RPG Maker window, and then finding the dimensions yourself in Paint. Personally, I'm not sure what the dimensions are. I kind of took a shot in the dark and it just happened to be near, but I don't want to give you the actual numbers because they're incorrect. It just so happened to look proper the way that I did it. So if you just take a screenshot, you can kind of figure out the dimensions yourself, or maybe you can Google it. It's kind of a pain, but definitely worth it, because if you can show pictures in your game and flash them up, it definitely adds depth. So once we have our picture on the screen, so let's say the name of this is Test Game, where it's like Test Game, The Adventure. Then we're moving on, and after it displays that picture, self switch A turns on to our next page. And once again, you'll want to make sure that's parallel process so that the next page just seamlessly starts to play once we're on it. We're going to wait 100 frames, and now here's something interesting, and just kind of try to pay close attention here, because this is going to be just a little bit confusing. If you remember, we brought the color tone to the screen back. So right now, even though there's a picture displayed on the screen, behind that picture we still have the setting where all the kids and the adults are in bed, and someone's talking and it's real dramatic. So the color tone is still there. So if that picture were to go away, for example, later when we erase the picture here, then it would just immediately go away, and all of a sudden you can just see the background again. It's really choppy and would look really weird, and you definitely don't want to do that. So what you do is, after this wait, we change the color tone back to black. So that's in 0 frames, so it's instant. But you would never see that happen because there's a picture currently displayed. So while your splash screen is up, you've taken the background and made it black again, so that when the picture goes away, it's just on a black background instead of where you left off when the screen popped up. Unless you want to do that, but you probably don't. Now the picture color tone, over 40 frames, we change it to black, and that just simply fades out our picture to black, and then once 40 frames have passed, we erase the picture, but you can't tell we have erased the picture because we faded it to black, so it's seamless, it looks perfect. I'm going to wait some more frames and then transfer us to the next map. And because everything is black, you will never see this happening. It just looks like your splash screen came up and faded out, and then you're just going to fade into whatever you're doing next. It's very seamless, and I would definitely recommend playing around with it. Okay, so we're now done with the first page, and so far, if you're still with me, congratulations. It's about to get pretty raunchy here. Moving on to map number 2. I'm sorry, I just feel like I need to say that you don't have to make it, as in-depth as this. I just feel like the more depth you have, the better game you're going to come out with. But I'm not like a professional game designer or anything. It's just personal preference. So let's take a look at this. The first thing we need to look at here is our little angel event. There's literally nothing on this angel. Nothing. There's no parallel process, no options ticked besides what's there by default, no commands, no name, no conditions, no nothing. She is simply there to be the one that talks. But you'll notice we don't make her talk on this event or anything like that, because that's handled by a master event that's controlling the cutscene. There's no way for the player to tell, oh, well, is the event, did they put the text in her event, or is it handled by a master cutscene event? There's no way for them to tell that, so she's simply there for looks. Now, the chess piece, which is going to, if you remember when we first play tested this, the chess piece takes the place of your character, which it's not really your character, but we'll touch on that in just a moment. What we need to look at here is just that this chess piece has multiple states, and if you look up here, it's got 7 pages total. And for future reference, we will refer to this as shell. The reason I called it shell is because in the game she says it's a shell of what you are going to be, but it has no soul or whatever. So essentially, I'm just going to walk through these, and you'll be able to keep these in mind as we're going through the master event, and hopefully you'll be able to remember what we did here. Now, if you look on page 2, or actually for each of these pages, they're going to have conditions besides the very first one, because there are no conditions for it to be a chess piece. It's just that's what it looks like when we get to this point. Now, if we go to page 2. If switch boy is on, it makes us a boy, and that would be when she asks, are you a boy or a girl? If you say boy, we turn boy on, which makes us a little boy. Alternatively, if you pick girl, we turn, on the third page here, the switch girl is on. So if you pick boy, you look like this. If you picked girl, you look like this. And that's where we're at so far, so just stay with me. Now, moving on, when you select your class, because the classes are based on your gender in this particular game, when you select, for example, this graphic is for the night, so when switch boy is on, that's required, and also when switch night is on, which is when you select night, it will give you this graphic. Same thing if you go to page 5, if boy is already on, which it will be because you selected boy, if you pick rogue, it's going to change your icon into this. Alternatively, the same thing for if you pick girl. Girl has to be a condition, that switch has to be on. And then if you select wizard, that switch has to be on. And once they're both on, the conditions are met to display the wizard. Same thing for this. If you selected girl and then you selected cleric, both those conditions are met, so it will display the cleric icon. That's all that this is. It's just, it gives us the ability to give us kind of a dynamic event here that will change based on our answers, even though you'll notice there's no event commands, there's no parallel process on any of these, nothing like that. It's simply our icon that's going to change. And once again, we'll touch on that in just a moment. So, now that we've got that out of the way, we have our master event, which is very hard to see. I just know it's there because I made it. It's at the very top right. And these are the only 3 events here. The angel, the chess piece, and our master event, which is this one. And you'll notice it has quite a few pages. But we'll go ahead and walk through this. Now, because this is a master cutscene event, and it's what's controlling and driving our entire introduction, every page here is set to a parallel process, all 4 of them, so that each time we hit a page and we change pages or whatever, it just automatically starts going. If you need it to wait, you can just insert a wait at the very top. So let's see, what do we have here? Remember, if you remember from the last map, we transferred to map number 2, but everything is black, so you can't see that happening, but just for the gameplay, we are there, and it allows us to fade in on a different map, just like we, just to make it completely seamless. So on page 1, we start out with the BGM, which is this one, if you recall. And once that starts, we wait 30 frames and then change our color tone over 50 frames, and that's just bringing it to normal colors. So we're fading in from black. Wait 40 frames, we're changing our options because if you recall, we had it at the top without a window. Now we have it showing at the bottom with a window. And now we have some text. Now, something I want to touch on just momentarily is that there are ways, scripts that you can find that are basically, they adjust the messaging system. For example, instead of having this stupid question mark, colon, welcome to the world of testing, to identify the angel, there's some scripts that actually allow you to have like a name box, which that does not come as a default. It does in RPG Maker VX, but it does not in RPG Maker XP. And so you just have to do it this way with the question marks or whatever, unless you want to download a script which will add name boxes to your game. So she says, welcome to the world of testing. Before you begin your adventure, I have a few questions for you. Next to me you will see a shell, a body with no soul. Depending on your answers, you will see the shell change. This is your vessel, and unknown to the player, that's going to change based on those switches that we looked at earlier on the chess piece, those 7 switches. We wait 50 frames, and firstly, are you male or female? Choose wisely. You will not be able to alter your gender once you enter the world. Now, this is the first kind of hairy, scary thing, but don't worry. If you take a look here where it says when male and when female, these events that follow are exactly the same. So we have 2 sections right here, when female and when male. When male, we're showing an animation on the shell, which is the chess piece, so it flashes the chess piece, waits 10 frames, the screen flashes white, and we turn boy on when they select male, which is causing our chess icon to be like, oh, the condition's met for boy. The switch boy is on, so it changes it to a little boy. we wait 20 frames, she says something, and self switch A is on, which moves us to our second page. Same thing when you pick female. We're going to show an animation on the shell, wait 10 frames, the screen flashes, except instead of boy, we turn girl on, which makes the condition for the chess piece girl is on, so it gives you the little girl as your icon. It waits 20 frames, she says the exact same thing, and the control self switch A is on, the branch ends. So either way, at the end of this event, self switch A turned on. We've basically forced this event that no matter what happens, self switch A is going on, whether you pick boy or girl, as well as the appropriate switches will toggle boy and girl. So now that self switch A is on, we're moving to page 2 where the condition self switch A is on. Now this is something interesting. Our page 2 and page 3 are almost identical. The only difference is our condition. Now when the conditions are met that switch boy is on as well as self switch A is on, which would only happen if you chose male, then we're going to follow this event path, and on 3 same thing, exactly the same thing, except we picked girl, so the switch girl is on and self switch A is on. So it tells this that this is the page it needs to run. And you'll see why, because this page is allowing us to select between Knight and Rogue, which are the male classes. This one's allowing us to pick between Wizard and Cleric, which are the female classes. And because they are gender dependent, we have to somehow tell the game that when you pick boy, we want it to say these two classes. If you pick girl, we want it to say these two classes. So that's why we have these two different pages that are basically exactly the same, but have different conditions. We just are basically specifying what we want. So moving on, actually we'll go through all of them. So when you pick boy and self switch A turns on, we wait 30 frames, and now we have to select our profession. Show choices, Knight or Rogue. Now these big green boxes are comments I added, so we can discuss this because I think it's important to know, even though it's something I think if you were to just watch this video and you weren't really an expert with RPG Maker, you probably wouldn't really understand this. So just in case, I thought it would be good to explain just for anybody that decided to keep watching, even if they don't know what we're talking about. So anyway, you select your profession. Now when you select your profession, and this is actually true for making your character a boy or a girl, but also for changing you to a knight, cleric, wizard, or rogue, when we change that chess piece, we are only changing the icon of that piece. That actual icon has nothing to do with our character, because if you remember at the very beginning, our character is only serving as the camera right now. He's completely invisible. So when we're like, oh, do you want to be a knight or a cleric, and we're changing the icon, it looks cool, it's like, yay, yay, we're knights or clerics, but we're actually not, because we haven't, while we've changed an icon that's just on the map, we haven't actually told the game, hey, change us to a knight, or hey, change our skills and stuff to this, or change, so it's important to know that in an actual game, if you're wanting to do this and be able to select your classes this way, you have to, on top of everything we've done here, you also have to add events that actually change it on the game side. So there's event commands that say like change class, and you can select what actor you're changing the class on and pick what class it's changing to, but that's all database stuff that you would need to go in and edit. I didn't do it for this game because it would have taken a lot longer than 2 hours to finish, so I'm going to go ahead and read through these comments. Like I said, this is only changing the icon of a static event on the map. In an actual game, you would need to also include an actual change class event for your actor, as well as changing the icon to whatever you selected. Remember, our actual player is still invisible. The changing icon on the map is not your actor, and it's not reflective of your actor. It's just to help the player know what they're going to look like. It works to show the player what they are picking, but you would need to apply those changes to your actual actor. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's not too confusing. It's basically anything you do in RPG Maker, there's two sides to it. One side is showing the player what's going on and keeping that suspension of disbelief or belief. I'm not really sure which one it is. and then after you've changed it for the character or for the player and they know what's going on, you also have to edit it in the game. Another good example of this is in a game. If you like find a key, an item, and you add that item to your inventory and it just says key, it's like, well, great, it's awesome that you have that key in the game, and hell, you can even press escape and look in your inventory in the game and that key is going to show up. But if you don't tell the game that that key does something or that it has an effect on something, then that key is useless. It's just an icon in your inventory. It doesn't affect anything until you tell the game that it does. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. That's exactly what you're doing with these with your actor. So it's just important to change your actor based on what you're presenting to the player, because right now we're still a Luxus. We're still that little orange-haired default icon. If we were to actually make our character not transparent anymore and want to walk around and play the game, we would just be the orange-haired guy, and all this stuff that we've done and changed our class and changed our looks and stuff, it doesn't have any effect because we didn't actually do it for our actor. So, that being said, moving on. Blah, it's a lot to take in. Just bear with me. Feel free to rewind this video a couple times if you need to really grasp it. And as always, you can always send a message and I'll be more than happy to explain it as well as I can. So moving on in this event, when you select night, we're showing an animation. We're waiting 10 frames. The screen flashes. We control switch night is on. We wait 20 frames, have some text, and then self switch B turns on to take us to the next page. When rogue, it's exactly the same thing. We're showing an animation, waiting 10 frames, the screen flashes, rogue turns on instead of night, which is all that's affecting is what the guy looks like on the map. Wait 20 frames, she says something, control self switch B is on. Now if you go to our page 3, it's exactly the same, but it's for the girl tier, or the girl tree rather. So you'll come down here, when you pick wizard, show animation, wait 10 frames, screen flashes, turn wizard on, wait 20 frames, says some text, control self switch B is on, cleric, the exact same thing. Now once again you'll notice that regardless of what you pick, at the very end of each branch self switch B turns on, and that's once again we forced the event to end and change to the next page depending on what you select, or actually regardless of what you select. It doesn't matter if you what class you pick, the end result is going to be that self switch B turns on, which is going to continue driving our event because this is the master event. And then we go to page 4. At page 4 we fade out the BGM over 3 seconds, she says some text, wait 50 frames, we fade to black again, she says some text, wait 100 frames, and then we display a game over screen. Once again, that's a parallel process, and that's it. So that's how you kind of make your intro, and that's how you can, make an intro for your game, especially if you want to select classes and things like that. Because Black Aces, the person who initially requested this video, sorry, I ate the mic there for a second. It tasted bad, just so you know. Their main question though was how to make an introduction, and I don't think any introduction is complete without telling them what your name is, but like I said, there's an event command that just says change name or input name, or name input processing is what I think it's actually called, and it will allow you to actually adjust your name on the actor level. It will actually, for the rest of the game, change your actor's name. So if you've seen my text command videos, you can actually call the actor's name in the text box if you need to. Anyway, so you can add that in if you would like. I forgot to do it for this video, but like I said, it's very simple to add. Really takes no time at all. And yeah, so as far as an introduction, you could do the same thing, like if you're trying to pick starter Pokemon or something like that. You have a conditional branch. Do you want this one, or this one? And depending on what you pick, you add it to your inventory, or just whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think that's it. I think that's about as much explaining as I can do as far as this is concerned. I think what I'm going to do now is basically just going to go through and real quick click on every event that we've used here, just for reference, if you would like to go through and just pause the video on a certain page, I'll look at all my event pages real quick, and you can pause your video if you want to look through the event list or follow along or make this identical, just for practice. I mean, you're more than welcome. I don't care about this. This is totally just a demonstration. So do that real quick. You can pause here if you'd like. Pause here if you would like, but there's not much here. That was our event that starts everything off, makes everything black, and makes our character transparent at the very beginning, so that we can have a cutscene without some little orange-haired dude just running around being crazy. You can pause here or here, and this drives us to our second map here. Remember, our angel has nothing on it, so we'll look at the chess piece and all of the different pages here. Be sure to look at your conditions. That's important for changing your icon here. Okay, and then we'll look at our master event. There's this, if you want to take a look. Scrolling down, check the next page. And the next page. Remember, the only differences really here are the switches that turned on. Not the self switches, because that's going to be the same regardless, but depending on your class, you're turning on either wizard, cleric, rogue, or knight, which is affecting your icon. And then finally, the very last one. And that's it. So I hope this helped you. I know it can be a little bit confusing, especially when you get into switches and all the different conditional branches. I mean, that's pretty much the hardest part about RPG Maker, is being able to keep that logic flowing in the game so that nothing messes up. Keeping everything nice, crisp, clean, identical, and I really think, especially for an introduction like this where you're selecting things, it's important to keep it that way. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave comments. If you have questions, you should definitely send me a message, because I'm much more responsive to those. And if I missed anything, or if you'd like some kind of video or anything like that, as per the usual, just let me know. And I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.